Trump is cranking up tariffs on China like literally as we speak. And I think a big part of that is America trying to hold back the Chinese tech takeover. That's been a big deal in the last decade. And there's kind of a secret movement that's caused that to happen. And it's heavily impacted the photographic industry to the point where like most of the stuff we use nowadays is not just manufactured in China, but made by Chinese companies. And I'm worried about Canon, Nikon, Sony. Like, look what happened when Chinese companies started making action cameras. Look at GoPro's stock chart and look how it fell.
Yeah, but I'm excited for photographers because DJI came out with the Pocket 3 and completely shook up the vlogging format. Mm-hmm. And I think that they could come in and do it in other places as well. Maybe even possibly a full frame camera. So their innovation is probably going to not only benefit photographers, but kind of shake up the competition and make people start to innovate a little more heavily.
We're going to roll the clock back and talk about this mostly secret Chinese movement that completely changed the entire tech industry, but especially photography. But first, we want to thank our sponsor, Squarespace.
Whether you need your own portfolio, store, or gallery, you can make it happen at Squarespace. You can sell your prints there. You can book clients. You can even have them sign contracts or even just review their pictures. It doesn't have to be a photo portfolio. You can host any kind of business there. So check it out for 14 days for free. Go to squarespace.com/Chelsea and use the coupon code Chelsea to get 10% off. Thanks, Squarespace.
I know a lot of people are watching this and saying, no, Chinese stuff is crap. What are you talking about? I get it.
That was like an old idea. Everybody thought that Chinese companies just kind of took an idea and made some cheap stuff and cranked it out for less money. Well,
they used to do that. They used to just make knockoffs and that would be cheaper.
Yeah.
And worse. And we found that when we first started testing lenses. Like, roll back to our videos from 2012, we tested some Chinese stuff and it looked exactly like the Canon stuff, but it performed bad.
Yeah, I remember the image quality, the optics were really poor in a lot of the lenses that we reviewed at that time.
Yeah. But fast forward today, and I just sort of realized that we gradually switched to almost all Chinese stuff in a lot of our accessories. Like, the first thing was the lighting. We used to use Canon flashes on our Canon cameras, and we used to use Alien B's USA manufactured studio lighting. And now we switched to Yongnuo and then to Godox. And not because it was cheaper, because it was better. It was also cheaper, but because of the tech was better.
Yeah, I remember when we first switched to Godox, we were like, oh, this is pretty affordable. Maybe we can recommend this to our audience if it's decent. And then we're like, oh, it's very, very good and it's inexpensive. So they definitely innovated in that way.
And then more recently, like when DJ launched the Pocket 3, we stopped using little Canon and Sony vlogging cameras because it looked completely different and it worked way better. And it changed the way we work. Now, if we're at a press event, I can use the Pocket 3 to record everything and then quickly send stuff to my phone, edit it, and publish it in a way I could not do with another camera.
Yeah, but then they also integrated the mic system. So now we also switch to their mics for most stuff. Not now, but when we're on the go. I mean, we've got lighting, vlogging, mics.
Yep, and in this past year, I switched my landscape and portrait cameras over to a Hasselblad, which is a Swedish company, but is owned by DJI, which is a Chinese company.
And your drone.
And of course, yeah, my drone, because DJI completely killed every other consumer drone manufacturer.
So in the process of writing this podcast, we realized, oh, we've been slowly switching to all Chinese innovated and made things.
But like, what happened? Why 10 years ago was all the Chinese stuff terrible and now it's the best of the best? That's a big shift for just 10 years. And I went looking into it and there is a thing. This was a thing. It was called Made in China 2025.
I had never heard of this before.
No, because they actually tried to keep it quiet. Now, Made in China 2025 was created in 2015. Looking forward 10 years. So 10 years ago, 2025 was like a faraway number.
People plan 10 years?
And China came up with a plan where they wanted to move more into a middle-class society. Like, they wanted to get their people better living conditions. And they didn't want to be just the world's factory anymore. They wanted to actually design stuff.
That makes sense. If you're just taking other people's ideas and remaking them for cheaper, then, the middle class is not getting paid the same wages as the rest of the world.
So China took a look around, and some other countries had sort of done this. Like Japan and Germany, coming out of World War II, went through a similar revolution. And so they took some pieces from that and put together their own plan to massively invest in education and tech companies. And 10 years later, their goals were pretty well achieved. Now they put in, from the source I see, $1.7 trillion into the economy in forms of lower taxes for high-tech companies, incentivized mergers and acquisitions, maybe like DJI buying Hasselblad, literally just putting money into companies for their research and development, as well as like sort of changing how they educate people so that they would have citizens aging into the workforce that would be capable of creating more high-tech stuff.
Common economic plan. The money that you put into education and science usually comes back at multiples. So they had a good long-term plan.
And when you look into the Made in China 2025, one of the examples they cite as a huge success coming out of this is DJI.
I know. I think that's funny that we didn't even know about this, and in researching it for the podcast, we discovered DJI is like a shining star in China.
Yeah, and if you think of them as just drones, they're not. They're cameras, they're mics, they're action cameras. It's a lot. Now, they've already come so far.
Was that the actual name of the whole effort? Project
Made in China 2025? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now, they're not, I'm calling it Made in China 2035. They're not calling it that. But they
they have a new plan.
They do have a new plan that's looking out another 10 years. And it's going to be a similar effort.
We should do that.
Put together a 10-year plan? No. Day by day, we'll just change laws and whatever. That should work out just fine.
Can't we just put money into like education?
No, it's called the weave, Chelsea, the weave. Nobody knows what's happening next, but it all comes together at the end, we hope.
No.
So they have a new goal targeting 10 years out. And so it does make me think, like, what's going to unfold over the next 10 years? Because the last 10 years completely changed these products. It took over most of our industry.
Yeah, they went from a lens where everything looked like a beauty filter.
Yeah.
It was all like squishy.
It looked like a
Barbara Walters when they'd like soften an old person's lens.
Barbara, yeah, exactly. It looked like that. And now they're like top of the industry. So 10 more years out, what's going to happen?
Oh, well, we have some ideas because we did look over the plan.
I'll give you a hint. I found news articles saying China is teaching 6-year-olds how to use AI.
Oh.
So.
Well, our 6-year-olds are having their dopamine centers hijacked by Coco Melon. So good luck, China.
Oh, man. I got to call it Miss Rachel and get her to like change the curriculum a little bit here.
I've seen like 8-month-olds in restaurants like better at a tablet than me, but it's just all Coco Melon. So.
Now, in fairness, the world is responding. We are cranking up tariffs. There's lots of sanctions against China. The U.S. has started laws to try to ban DJI drones and to kick TikTok out of the country.
They're like, stop doing cool stuff here. Get that out of here.
We're the land of competition now.
Beat it.
You're not allowed in here. And there's a reason, like, BYD really makes the best electric cars in the world. I don't know that firsthand because I've never even seen one because you can't get them in the US, but the tariffs are so high we can't import them. So that's one way the world's fighting back.
Tariffs, and also TikTok is being forced to sell their app.
Yeah, you just told me Larry Ellison is getting it, I think.
Today is March 14th in our recording world, and I guess Larry Ellison is the top contender for buying TikTok. The rest of the world seems to be trying to squeeze them out of that top spot.
And it's not working very well, at least not so far. It's not working.
I think we should all come up with 10-year plans that like hopefully bring us to a better place.
Maybe we all should be investing in ourselves more long-term than just making it day by day. But I'm kind of busy scrolling TikTok, so I don't think I'm going to have time for that.
You're trying to learn a TikTok dance?
Okay, we'll walk you through the advancements that different Chinese companies have made, as well as talking about what we think is going to happen in the next 10 years, which could be a little scary for Canon, Nikon, Sony.
Yeah, in the photo space.
Yeah. But first, we want to thank our sponsor, Squarespace.
If you want your own website, portfolio, store, gallery, you can make it happen with Squarespace. I have one and I love it. See? Doesn't it look so nice? It doesn't take very long to set up, and once you do, you're going to want to update it, add new photos, make it pretty, You can try it completely for free. You don't have to remember to cancel. It's just a 14-day sample of the greatness you could create. So go to squarespace.com/Chelsea and use the coupon code Chelsea to get 10% off. That saves you some money, and it lets Squarespace know that I'm doing a bang-up job. Me specifically.
So we already sort of talked about how lighting has changed. We switched over to Chinese lighting for studios. The lenses aren't quite there yet. They're not super popular, but we've seen a lot of progress. And I've been talking to a couple of Chinese lens manufacturers like Filtrox and Sirui. I don't know how to say the name even.
We can't say the names.
But the lenses are really good. Like, look at these cinema lenses. They're gorgeous. You can switch the mounts out for different cameras, so you can get this one set and use them on a bunch of... Anyway, somehow in the past decade, China got really good at making optics.
Yeah, the lens image quality has improved a lot, and we are just speculating. We don't know for sure, but we think it might be because a lot of camera companies were switching to Chinese manufacturing because it was less expensive. And so people in China were probably learning how to like reverse engineer things and make their own optics. That's a possibility.
Yeah, and I think going forward, we'll see more and more of that. Like, it takes some time to develop the optical skills and to create these autofocus motors and stuff, but the stuff we're seeing in 2025 is really good. So extrapolate that out a few more years, and I think third-party Chinese manufacturers are going to take a bigger and bigger part of the market share. Now, Canon and Nikon, they're sort of buffered from this because Canon really doesn't allow any third-party lenses that they don't specifically approve. Actually, Nikon doesn't either. Nikon's just not quite as strict. They allow some more things. Sony could take the biggest hit here because Sony E-mount is pretty open. They pretty much allow anybody to make something for E-mount. Lumix, Leica, they're part of L-mount now, and that's an open mount. So we could start to see them losing more and more of their lenses, and maybe even their bodies too, if the Chinese companies start making more cameras.
It's not just hardware that they're excelling at, though. They're also excelling in software. So we use French software, DxO, and we also use Adobe. But my friend introduced me to Avoto AI, which is a portrait editing software, and it's incredible. You may have seen the video that I made about it, but that is my number one go-to for editing portraits now. And it's amazing, innovative, easy to use.
Yeah, for me, the experience was like the first time I used the Pocket 3 compared to conventional vlogging cameras. It was that revolutionary. Like, I was like, how has nobody made this before? Whoa! It was like jumping forward 10 years into the future.
Yeah, it's incredible. It doesn't completely replace Lightroom and DxO though, because I still use those for landscapes. But the capability's there. They just have to use that on different types of photos.
But looking forward 10 years. Like, China's already an AI leader, and they're investing heavily, and they're getting
their 6-year-olds are doing it.
And Avoto is already a leader. So what is going to happen another 10 years out? Like, they have the skill sets as the country. I'm intimidated by it. I think it could really change the photography software landscape.
You might be able to get to the point where you just upload your photos into the software, and it automatically figures out what type of settings that you like, and it pulls out the portraits and it edits those automatically, and the landscapes and the architecture, and
pick some clickbait hashtags and stick it right on Instagram for me.
It might all
maybe I won't have to do anything at all. But I know what's really scary is the idea that China could impact Canon, Nikon, Sony, Fuji.
Why are you always scared?
Because I care about these companies, I guess.
So,
I'm reflecting on this. Like, I have feelings. Like, I don't want to see these companies go down. They have like a 100-year history. And I don't want them to lose their business.
But why does it end a company? Competition doesn't have to end a company. Okay. I mean, like, Leica was one of the top cameras, and then in Japan, Nikon started making their optics for their telescopes, and then they used them for lenses, and it didn't end Leica.
No, and I don't think it's going to kill any of the Japanese companies, but they could become smaller and smaller. Like, Pentax didn't die. They're still around. They're just not doing anything
What
exciting.
do you learn when you go to school for business? There is a life cycle of a company. Nothing lasts forever, right? Nobody gets to be on top all of the time, and it's a good thing. A part of life is creation and destruction. So, yeah, new things have to happen for us to make progress.
So speaking of creation,
I'm
take a look at
excited.
this Yongno Chinese camera. It is the Android camera that we have been asking for so long. It has a huge screen on it.
It's suspicious. They may have AI made you to make your camera dreams come true.
It's interchangeable lens, albeit micro four thirds. It's a little slam there. But it's on the order of like 30 times faster at transferring files wirelessly than any of the Sony, Nikon, Canon cameras. It has cellular capabilities, GPS tagging. So you could do Find My. If somebody stole it, you could literally track it down
And
because
then
it
what?
has cellular and GPS. And then you use your Sigma BF to bash them and take it back.
Darn you!
Now, I'm not going to say the Yongno YN455 is a perfect camera. They have some work to do, especially on the software. But they released this a couple of years ago. And it's something none of the other manufacturers have been able to do. With a little refinements, a next generation could really change the way a lot of people shoot by bringing these features that we've become accustomed to on a smartphone into a proper camera format with proper optics, which this is. That could really upset the whole industry.
You're betting on Yongno because I'm thinking it's going to be DJI with a full frame camera. They've got drones. They've got a vlogging camera with an integrated mic system. They have medium format cameras. They don't have lights, but they could have a full frame camera.
Yeah, no, my money is on DJI, but there's actually multiple competitors here.
There's many
Yongno
contenders
doing it. And yeah, I think the Japanese companies should be scared. I think they should be putting together plans to compete with China's camera and lens companies 5 years out from now because they are moving so fast.
It must be hard to be a well-established company and have to take a risk like this. Because you know how it is, like they're answering to shareholders. I read those financial reports and I see how they're working all the numbers. They always have to make everything look positive. It would be very difficult to make a big shift.
Yeah, you're right. Especially culturally, Japanese companies just aren't inclined to do that. They won't do massive layoffs because they have a personal relationship with the employees, something I really respect.
But I mean, any company, think of the history of Kodak. We've done the history of a bunch of camera manufacturers, and one of them was Kodak. They invented the digital camera in the 70s, but their bread and butter was film. You can't cannibalize your own business sometimes by creating the future. So it could just be too difficult. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But all I know is I'm afraid of these little AI programming 6-year-olds.
Yeah,
Good idea.
The fact of the matter, if DJI makes a better Sony A1 than Sony does, people aren't going to switch overnight because cameras and lenses they have a proprietary mount. You invest in your cameras and lenses and you want to continue to use them for a decade. It's just not that easy to switch.
Right, it's a full system.
Yeah, exactly. So there are these kind of artificial barriers to changing, which you don't experience. You could switch from a Nissan to a Honda and there wouldn't be any major investment loss. But you can't switch from Sony to DJI and not give up all your lenses, at least not today.
Right. Yeah, you're right. It would take people a while to switch over, so there's
a buffer there.
There's a
but
buffer.
They got to get moving.
They do got to get moving. You tried to get them to make stuff.
We have been talking to them for a while. We've been trying to.
But
get
our
a little
ideas
momentum.
could be real stupid.
Maybe.
They could be
Maybe.
dumb.
So to recap, China 10 years ago really invested trillions of dollars with the goal of becoming a tech leader, and they accomplished their goals. And we saw this across a lot of industries, but photography was one of those big industries. And as a result, they've kind of crushed companies like GoPro. And we do think the Japanese camera companies could be next on their targets. So it's going to be really interesting to see because there are big cultural differences that China has where they do revolutionary designs instead of incremental evolutionary improvements and craftsmanship, which Japan has been focused on for so long.
What about the US? I guess we did okay with the iPhone, but we're not really crushing it in any other camera technology. I can't even really give GoPro credit for the GoPro. Wasn't it just a repackaged Chinese camera?
That's true. GoPro's not the best example of American engineering, but you're right. Apple did completely change the face of photography and so many other things when they introduced the iPhone. So in the comments down below, let us know what you think. Do these Chinese companies stand a chance? Which of these Chinese brands are you using for your photography needs? And don't forget to thank our sponsor, Squarespace.
You don't forget to thank our sponsor, Squarespace.
Head to squarespace.com/Chelsea and you can set up a real website with your own custom domain name that isn't social media. It doesn't have the restrictions of social media. You get to control the layout, the fonts, the colors, make it your own, because so much of what you do is about your personal touch, your style. That's how you distinguish yourself. You can set up a store, sell whatever you want, take appointments from clients, send people to your own custom domain with your own custom emails, and it all starts at squarespace.com/Chelsea. Get a free trial, no credit card required. When you love it, the coupon code Chelsea will save you 10%. Thank you for sponsoring us, Squarespace.
And thanks for watching the Picture This Photography podcast. If you want to see more podcasts like this, you can go to our playlist on YouTube. We have our podcast on Spotify now, so it'd be cool if you checked it out there, but it's available anywhere that podcasts are available. So thanks so much and see you next time.
Bye.